At Mental for Moto, our mission is to give the unsung heroes of Aussie motocross a voice. From grassroots racing right through to the biggest events in the country, sharing the stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're interested in the advertising packages that we have available, or just want to show your support, please check out our website, www.mentalformoto.com, and we can tailor a package to suit your needs. Now, let's get on with the show.
There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team pulled together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride.
Welcome back, Moto fans. Before we get into it, a massive thanks to our partners here at Mental for Moto, Fastline Suspension, Southeast Pools, Wolf Building Compliance, Iro Helmets, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the August sponsor of the Mental for Moto Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, JT Plumbing. Now, it's been a long time between drinks, but back in the Moto Asylum for this episode to talk all things Moto. Welcome back, Dean Mosig.
Thanks, Pete. Pleasure to be here, mate. It's always good.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. It's been probably a couple of years, I reckon.
Yeah, at least 1 year, yeah. Yep. No, it's always good to get in there and shoot the shit.
Yeah. How have you been going?
Good. Busy. Yep. I've sort of given it a pretty good tickle this year, you know, all the Vics, the last round of the Pro MX, handful of Gippies, everything in between, and just enjoying it, man. Just really enjoying it, trying to savor it, just be present. Yeah,
I saw on social media you've got some news coming, you know, on the horizon, so you've got to get all your riding out while you can.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Little Mo, he'll be here in December. So, yeah, we're collectively as a family, Tegan, Gracie, myself, are all really excited for that, and it's going to be a new chapter. And you know, I'm fortunate that she's allowed me to go racing like I have this year and not get it out of my system, because I don't think it ever will be. But you know, give it one last really good rinse and, you know, step into that next chapter. So no, we're excited, man. It's very, very good.
Well, hopefully we still see you at the track once baby comes along.
Yeah, I think I'll be not totally removed, but, you know, at least for the first 6 months or something, I think I'll be dedicated to being at home and supporting the family. And then, you know, I'd like to say I'd still be riding here and there. I live 5 minutes from the Hastings track and things like that. So, you know, maybe every now and again I can sneak out and scratch that itch. But I think, you know, racing might be on hold for a little bit at least. Yeah, I've already told Tegan that I want to do the Pro MX National at the end of the year. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
No,
yeah.
Most definitely. And I think since the last time I had you on, some pretty big changes at Peter Stevens as well. So tell me a little bit about how all that's going.
Good. Yeah, there's a lot of growth, for the business. Obviously, the acquisition of us being bought out by Motorcycle Holdings, the parent company of the Team Moto franchises as well. So the remodel for them has been restructuring the Peter Stevens business to essentially take over the Victorian Team Moto franchises. So Motorcycle Holdings are a Queensland-based company. They understand that the Peter Stevens name and franchise is synonymous with motorcycling in Victoria, and they understand the legacy that the business represents here in Victoria culturally and all that stuff. So yeah, we've been busy taking over the Team Moto stores. We've acquired the Epping store last month, I think July. That's now Peter Stevens Epping, and there'll be the Carrum Downs store for later in the year as well. So big things happening on the back end, and yeah, it's good. It's great for our business. You know, there's a couple other things in the pipeline too that I don't know are public knowledge yet, but it's good to bounce back. I think anyone that knows us personally, us as a business, and what we all went through during the administration window, there was a lot of hurt, a lot of suffering, a lot of
angst.
All of it, angst, you know, just genuine heartbreak, truthfully, man. You know I suffered in that period, and a lot of people did, you know, and to come out the other end now, to be rebuilding and have a big company support us and back us and really believe in who we are and what we do and what we represent, especially here in Victoria, it's good, man. We're on the ground again and we're full steam ahead. So it's good.
How's your role changed, and how's the sort of structure of the business in your day-to-day sort of changed since that?
My immediate role hasn't changed. I'm still at Dandenong for the meantime. Still, obviously, as a brand manager for Yamaha, senior sales role at the Dandenong branch. There will be a change of my location later in the year, but that's, I'm probably not going to announce it publicly just yet, but that will happen. And
is that a bit closer to home?
A bit closer to home, yeah, if that doesn't give it away. But, essentially as a senior sales executive and brand manager with Yamaha at a different location, which will be a fresh start for me, closer to home, with the exception of the family life that will be here. I will be probably an hour closer to home every day. Which is huge.
Yeah, massive.
I'll have an extra 5 hours a week with little Mo that I wouldn't have had if I was in Dandenong. So a bit of a rejuvenating sort of, I think a kickstart of, I'd say motivation, truthfully, to go to another dealership and, try and help build a successful sales team and build a culture and, step into a little bit of a mentor sort of role, help guide the team. We're also the DMS, so the computer program that Peter Stevens have used since the 90s. All of the Team Moto stores that we're acquiring are actually stepping into that, which is called AS400. It's old, it's clunky. A lot of the banks use it. There'll be some time where I'll actually have to teach a lot of the team the computer programs and get them up to speed and stuff like that too. So I'm excited for a new challenge.
Yeah.
For me, it's exciting. It's going to be sad to leave Dandenong. I'm coming into next year is actually my 10th year that I would have been at Dandenong. So the people at that store are like family. Kirby, Matt, the leadership group there are all, like family. So it is kind of bittersweet to be leaving Dandenong, but like anything, man, the only constant in life is change, right?
Yeah, and I think growth only comes through change as well. So
yeah, and it's quite often uncomfortable too.
Yep.
Yeah, so no, I'm ready for that. So yeah, that's going to be, looking like October at this stage. And hit the ground running.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I've got a few friends in the industry, and one thing that I've sort of heard with the current economic climate and everything that's going on, that retail is sort of tough at the moment. Have you guys felt that? Like, obviously, Peter Stevens is a pretty big company. Have you guys experienced, how is it going out there for you? Is it really good with sales? Is it sort of just ticking over, or?
I guess the model or the metric that Peter Stevens always ran by, if the market was down 5%, we wanted to be slightly ahead of the deficit. So, if the market was down 5%, but we were only down 2.5%, then we could see some sort of success in that metric. So it's hard to really pinpoint, because on the other end of it, Yamaha Australia recorded their biggest retail month in the history of the company for July just gone.
In Australia or worldwide?
In Australia, yep. But for the entire history of the company.
That's unreal.
So they surpassed their COVID record numbers and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And what's the driver behind that?
It's hard to say. Yamaha have really taken a different approach in the last couple of years, where they're really engaging with their dealer network through activations like the YZ250F launch. They did the R7 launch a month before that. They're really, Matthew Ferry, the executive general manager at Yamaha, he really believes that, investing in your dealer network and investing in your riders and the people that invest in the company can ultimately, result in people wanting to sell for the company and having a passion for the brand and loving the company that they work for. And it does. It results to sales. It really does. Investing in the people that invest in you. So they've got a new national events manager, a lady named Kate Hardman, who's doing a really good job. There's going to be more activations coming in the form of, the dealer network coming to ride new bikes, or even just like what they did with the 250F launch. They actually gave the dealers that wanted, they could come up on the Sunday and spend a day with the CDR team and experience a national if they hadn't done it. And they're totally hospitable. They paid for accommodation, flights, company car. It's just a level of appreciation firstly, but engagement that in years past, I don't think any other manufacturer has done it.
Yeah.
You know, and they're really leading by example with just how much they give back to their dealer network and the people and the culture and what they represent and everything like that. So there's one end of it. There's obviously, you know, at a national level for the OEMs, you know, Yamaha are killing it. I believe dealers are hurting. And it is hard because there are socio-economic bubbles within the PMA, the area of the dealerships that are affected. You know, like we're in Dandenong, it's not a thriving socio-economic
climate.
No,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And quite often our reach for our business, you know, in terms of the circle around where we are, you know, it's quite far, you know, to try and engage with business and things like that. So people are feeling the squeeze.
100%.
I am. You know what I mean? Cost of living and all those things, but it's, I guess, the dichotomy of a situation where people are feeling the squeeze and the cost of living is they're needing an outlet more than ever too. You know, and they're looking for that source of, you know, freedom, escape.
I mean, that's the epitome of what happened during COVID.
Yeah,
you know?
it is. You know, so that, you know, in some sense, it's a double-edged sword, and you know, it can be favourable, but we're doing good. We are doing good, and I feel like we're stepping into obviously the better weather in terms of sales volume. It steps up. You know, coming into spring, ultimately summer. You know, January, February, even, you know, they're what we call the busy season of the industry. So, yeah, we get through winter, we do what we do, and you know, we do our best to hit our marks. And truthfully, you know, I don't know about the other dealerships, but Dandenong are still performing really well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, we've got a good team and a good culture, good leadership, good attitude, and great products. A lot of help from manufacturers.
Yeah,
I think that's what gets us through, you know, the support from the OEMs, you know, Yamaha with their 1% finances and cash back and promos and things like that incentivize people to buy in tough times. It's what keeps the dealer network alive. So Honda are the same, you know, they've got 1% finance on CRF 250, 450, big rebates. Coming into Christmas time, there's always promos on kids' bikes and things like that. So, yeah, without the help from the OEMs, you know, I think dealers would really struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, and off the back of that too, like I'm not a Yamaha guy. I never really have been, but
we can change that.
Yeah, but like the current range of Yamaha bikes, and I don't want this to become an infomercial, but like I'm seeing it certainly in the vet riders, but all the way through, they've got a really good platform at the moment, especially the 250. So you already sort of touched on it. I had it earmarked to talk about a little bit later in the podcast, but tell me about that launch. I was bummed I couldn't hang around. I got invited when we went to the Our Cow activation that they did up at QMP, and I would have loved to stay around, but I had plenty of content to get through from the final round of Pro MX, and obviously had to make the trip back to Melbourne.
Yeah.
But tell me about how that went.
Honestly, Pete, it's fantastic. You know, we had the support of all of the factory trucks, so the CDR truck, the Yamalube truck, and the WBR truck. I said this to a couple of other people that I said, you know, that the 10-year-old Dean is pinching himself right now, you know, literally hopping on a bike out of the factory truck, you know, all the techs were there, all the mechanics, truthfully surreal, you know, and I constantly remind myself of how lucky I am to get these experiences. You know, I really don't ever want to get away from that and become not numb to it, but just lose touch of just how special those kind of events are. As for, you know, the whole event as a picture, what they did with the dinner the night before, the accommodation they put up for us was incredible. Yeah. They definitely don't cut any corners, Yamaha, when it comes to those events. And, you know, their return on investment is pretty big. You know, I think for the 2 weeks after that, all I saw on my feed were people talking about the YZ250F and the reviews and the bike and the product. And I know Geezer, the marketing manager at Yamaha, they've taken a different approach. They've actually gone, at the last few events, they've had social media influencers and that there. They've had retired pros. There was Kurt Gibbs there. There was, I was riding around with, you know, Stephen Gall, Josh Green, you know, some really big industry names that were all at that event and all riding. And yeah, they definitely made a wave in the social stratosphere with what they did. And I'd like to think that they'll get their return on investment from that event. You know, the sales back up what they did. You know, the YZ250F for financial year 25-26 was the number one selling motocross bike, and the number two selling motocross bike was the YZ450 outright nationally. So
the 2027 is an all new platform?
Yes, it is. So it's essentially adapted everything that the 2026 450 got.
Yep.
But actually a few more changes again. So the engine revs an extra 700 RPM. They've got an all-new braking system. It's a new frame. It's a new engine design too. Hydraulic clutch, different suspension.
They still KYB?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I was a little bit, not nervous, but, I haven't ridden a 250F since about 2013, so probably 13 years. And it's no secret that I'm probably a little bit overweight for a 250. You know what I mean? A 100-kilo vet rider and a 250F don't really go hand in hand. And I couldn't believe how easy that thing pulled me around. So we raced the same track we raced QMP at the Nationals. We rode, Monday, Tuesday. And even that tricky step up out the back, where the rollers are, the little table, that right-hander up the hill step up.
Yep.
I was dropping back to second gear and seat bouncing it on the 250F and getting over it. And I thought, man, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't be able to do this,
Had they prepped the track after?
They did. They tamed it right back. It was a lot smoother and safer, and that was the big thing that they said at the riders' briefing is we want everyone to go home in one piece having a good day. So they prepped the track really well and safe, which was kind of nice because we rode it rough and brutal at the National and, we rode it like Ride Park on the Tuesday, which was great. So, in terms of activations, that was hands down the best I'd ever been to. I think Sean Geoghegan, he's the national marketing manager at Yamaha. He even said at the dinner that in his 23 years with Yamaha, this was the biggest event that they'd ever ran.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
Yep. So honestly, world class in the sense that we actually were the first people in the world to ride it.
Yeah.
Generally, we're a little bit behind, say, Europe or America. Australia was actually the first country in the world to get the 250F. So apart from the people that had tested it, developed it and things like that, we were actually the first people in the world to ride it that week at QMP. Yeah. People from all over the world. Josh Coppins was there from JCR. He talked about his development. We had a couple of people from Japan. Yeah, it was unreal.
That's awesome. And it's good to get some positivity. Like I think in the current climate, economically there's a lot of doom and gloom. So it's awesome to hear that they're still selling bikes and, they've got new development happening. And they're investing in these sorts of events as well. Yeah,
that's it. And even just engaging with the dealer network and ultimately the company network too. You leave, I know personally for me, I leave those events feeling like I'm a part of something much bigger. You actually feel like you're a part of the family, and I don't know if you saw, Pete, that the big photo that they got of all of us, with the bikes, and you look at the faces in that photo, man, there's some industry elites that are all part of that Yamaha family, man. So just even to be in the same room as those people half the time, it's an honour, it really is. So
did you get a chance to ride Jed Beaton's bike?
No, I didn't. So the CDR boys did that for a lot of the media guys on the Monday, and then Jesse and Kenty and all those boys, they actually packed up a little earlier Tuesday. They were cooked, and rightfully so. And I think the WBR boys did a lot of the heavy lifting. The factory 250Fs were getting around. I know Scott Bishop was running around like a headless chicken trying to manage everything. So no, I didn't. But
Kenty was saying they already had to start getting the bikes ready for Supercross before they even left QMP.
So they were pulling them down.
That's unreal. Yeah.
So
there's no rest for the wicked, is there?
Jesse and Troy were literally pulling down Jed and Aaron's bikes on the Tuesday after they let them ride them on the Monday, and they were getting them ready to pack up and get ready for Supercross. So no rest for the wicked. And obviously they had Jed going over to America. So Jesse and Jed had a lot on their plate too to get ready for that.
No, that's unreal. All right, well, it's a good segue then. We've already spoken about QMP, but you went up this year to race the Vet National, the last round of the Pro MX.
Yep.
Is that your third time doing that?
Yeah, it is the third time round, yeah.
So how was the third time round?
Good. Third time lucky, I'd like to say, yeah. I think the first two times ended up in disaster for me. I cartwheeled at Coolum in the second moto and I broke 5 ribs and QMP.
Was it wrist?
Yeah, snapped my wrist. Good and proper. So my goal this year was just to finish 2 motos.
Yep. survive.
Literally, I just and essentially wanted to get the monkey off my back. It had been kind of haunting me, to be honest. Like, I didn't think I realised how much it was affecting me until it was over and done with, you know. And I rode okay. I think I ended up 12th overall. I think the second moto I ran in the top 10 for a bit before I threw the anchor out. But yeah, I just wanted to finish 2 motos, and that was the goal, and I hit that mark. So it wasn't super stellar, but, you know, 12th overall at a national, healthy, I took it, man. I was happy with that. So, but it's interesting because I came to Broadford on the weekend just gone, just feeling a lot lighter, and I was like, oh, you know, like, and I ended up putting my best qualifying time in ever.
Yep.
At Broadford, you know, I qualified 3rd just because I was like, oh, it's like I had this monkey off my back, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's
I guess after racing a national, there's not really the pressure anymore, like the self-imposed pressure going back to like a state event or a regional or anything like that.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. Yeah, it's crazy how the mind works. You know what I mean?
How's that whole experience at QMP like as a rider, like, you know, compared to racing a regional and state level event?
You feel like a rock star. Yeah, truthfully, it's obviously the people that race the nationals year in, year out, they probably come a bit numb to it. But for someone like me, you know, it's an experience thing. You know what I mean? To line up, you know, you essentially you feel like a pro rider. You know what I mean? And all the media and even just the tracks and the whole experience. For me, that's why I do it. You know what I mean? Again, I go back to 10-year-old Dean, going, man, this is sick.
How cool is it? Yeah.
Sick, man. I always dreamed about racing a national when I was a kid. You know, here I am. So that's what keeps me coming back. Truthfully, I'd like to see more vet rounds in the future. I think they'd get the numbers, but yeah, for me it's an experiencing, man, and it was good for, you know, I wanted Deegan to see me race a national. I wanted Gracie to see, you know, Dad race a national. You know what I mean? So that was a bucket list thing for me more than anything. For them to have that experience of seeing me do that, and, you know, go through qualifying, do the sight laps in the shoots, the whole lot, man. It was great. So I'm really grateful that they got that experience to see me do that, you know. If it happens again, great. But if not, you know, that's at least they saw it once.
Yeah. If they were to increase the rounds, what sort of idea would you have for where to go, which tracks? And do you reckon they'd get the numbers? Like, I think they would, but do you reckon they'd get good numbers if they sort of had a Victorian round or maybe a New South Wales round or
yes,
multiple rounds through a year?
Short answer, yes. You know, I spoke to a lot of the vet guys, even the guys down here that didn't go, that said, man, fuck, if it wasn't in Queensland, I would have done that. I would have loved to have raced the national, you know. I think ideally if they met in the middle, maybe a New South Wales round, you'd get the likes of your Vic guys going up and the Queensland guys coming down. It's a long slug to go to Queensland, man. You know, I was very fortunate that Brad Mass, a friend of mine, was going up and he goes, mate, I'll take your bike. I was flying up anyway for the Yamaha event, so I moved my flights forward a couple of days, and
oh, that's cool. Yeah,
it was pretty easy in that regard for me. But yeah, just the logistics of going to Queensland, it's hard. So I think if they did, you know, maybe a New South Wales round, or even a Vic round, you know,
we've got so many vet riders down here. I think a Vic round would go amazing, like a Traralgon.
Yep.
You know,
that
sort of track.
Yep, agreed, Pete. Yeah, there'd be a full grid of 30 guys.
Easy.
Without doubt. There'd be a full grid. You know, obviously it was a full grid at QMP with 30 and 40 combined. But yeah, you would see a full grid of 30 guys in Victoria. I know that a lot of the vet guys here would jump at that opportunity without a doubt. So I would love to see it. Yeah. You know, I would like to know if Pro MX or Motorcycling Australia see the value in doing that. Obviously, it would have a monetary benefit of entries, you know, the entry money that they would collect, but whether or not they can see the value in it is unknown. So yeah, I'd love to see more beat. If they did 2-3 rounds, you know, if I was in a position to do it, obviously, you know, if say Little Man wasn't around or whatever, you know, I'd be there at everyone, 100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, because I think there is the monetary value there. Typically, vet riders that are still racing motocross have a dispensable income. You know, nobody, for the most part.
Debatable.
Yeah, for the most part. Well, I mean, the most bling bikes on the line, you know, even at QMP, I was like, most of these vet bikes have probably got more stuff on them than, say, the MX2 guys at least.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think a vet championship with, you know, 2 or 3 rounds would do really well. And I mean, one thing we saw this year was with the 65s and 85s, we didn't have full gates, and I think that actually wouldn't be a problem with at least with the 30s and 40s combined. And if you go back to sort of tracks that are a little bit closer to maybe capital cities or areas that have a big riding demographic, you're going to get those numbers. I mean, Coolum, we spoke about that in 23.
23, Coolum, yep.
That had a separate 30 and 40 plus
and almost
class.
A full grid.
Yeah.
I almost didn't qualify.
Yeah.
There were nearly 40 30 plus guys that year. It was insane. So, and let's say if they did one at Broadford or something like that, I reckon you'd get full grid.
Yeah.
If Broadford were to host a national in the future or something like that, I would, or Traralgon, even Wondaggi, man. Yeah. So
I wanted to ask your thoughts on the calibre of rider, because like for me, I don't know, when I've sort of been going to the Pro MX since 23, and in 23 in the vet class, like we already said, we had, big numbers of vets. And I felt like there was sort of everything from your accomplished weekend warrior right through to your ex-pro guy. One thing that I've noticed each year is the calibre just seems to be getting better and better. Like those top guys, your Robbie Marshalls, your Luke Weavers.
Yeah, Steve Powell.
They've got some runs on the
Raymond
board.
Cole, yeah. And it's weird because I think to myself, man, I'm getting slower. I'm getting,
No, those guys just rip.
I guess to some degree I can kind of hold my head up a little bit because, yeah, you're right. I think the level has just gotten faster and faster over the last few years. And, I think I understand that I am a lot sort of older and slower and unfit and all that kind of stuff now, but yeah, the competition has gotten faster too.
Oh, big time.
The top 10 at QMP was still a tall order.
Yep.
And that's where, again, I'm lucky Teagan, my partner, reassured me. She goes, like, 12th is awesome. The guys you were riding against were animals. So, yeah, I guess us racers were always a little too hard on ourselves. You always want more. But, yeah, you're right, Pete. There were guys that I didn't even know who they were, and they lapped us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we had Reese Budd's brother out there as well. Like
Mitch.
Yeah.
And there were two. He has two brothers.
Yeah. They both raced last year as well.
Yeah, they were super fast. So yeah, you're right, man. It's and it's good, because it obviously builds the prestige of that class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just your weekend warrior guys. These are like former pros.
Yeah. Oh well, for the listeners that sort of aren't familiar with the riders, like you look at someone like Ali Kent.
Mm-hmm.
So he raced MX1 last year at QMP as well as the vets. And in the second moto, he ran top 10 in MX1 for probably the first third to first half of the race.
Yep.
And he's an awesome rider. And yes, this year he wasn't quite as fit, but he's not running on the podium. Your Ray Cole 7th outright at Fink last year, and he's a third place guy. And Steve Powell, former privateer, top place privateer in Pro MX, going back a few years, obviously.
Yeah. But
still active, still super fast, third on the box in the 40 plus. There is some fast guys in this class.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's great.
They're comparable to some of the current Pro MX field. Like that's how fast they are.
Oh, look at Robbie Marshall.
Yeah.
Robbie raced the whole series last year. Well, definitely the Supercross.
Yeah.
Robbie Marshall in 40 plus. So yeah, spot on, Pete. And but I guess that's what going to a national should be all about. Racing the best.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that there are dudes out there that still know how to rip. Yeah. That's good. Really good. Really good.
It's kind of soul destroying because I'm like, I'd love to go. No.
Nope. Nope.
So no.
Spot on.
But yeah, it's cool to see that there's still some longevity in the sport for guys that want to keep racing and keep competing at that age. And even like at the VIX level, I had that question for Kenny on our last VIX podcast. Like for some of these riders that say go to, like your Ray Cole or Peter Sullivan in the 50 plus, like that had a perfect VIX season. What's next for those guys? That's about it. I think that's they're the guys that should be lining up Pro MX vet races.
And that's where I think if that series was a little more accessible to the likes of those people, they're the numbers that you would get.
Yep,
you know what I mean? QMP, it's in the middle of nowhere, really. It's an hour and a half inland of Gold Coast, but those sort of people would come. And I think you made an interesting comment before about longevity. And I think the culture within racing has changed. You go back, you look at an AMA level, you look at your Ricky Carmichaels, your Villapotos, they all retired at 26 because they were just gassed out. And then you look at like someone like Ken Roxon or Eli Tomac, they've got kids, they've got families. Dean Wilson, that are well into their 30s. Cooper Webb. And I think that what's given them guys longevity, and this is what I see with the vet riders, is it's not so much even about the racing anymore, it's about the experience. A lot of the vet guys, they're taking their families away, their kids, the experience of the travel, all of it. That's what keeps a lot of those guys around. I think Ray Cole might have even had his little boy on the podium with him.
Yep.
How cool is that? You know what I mean? And that's where I think it's culturally maybe shifted a little bit more. It's through the experience concept rather than I can't win, okay, I'm going to retire. Or, I can't do the work anymore, I'm just going to pull the pin. People are doing it for the love.
Look at Haiden Melross at the Supercross last year.
With his little boy. How good was that? And I think a lot of people now are, especially in the vet demographic, look at all the guys that I race against, and 90% of them have kids and they're bringing their families away, and they've got the caravans and the campers and it's a total experience for them. And I think that's what's given our sport perhaps a little bit more longevity than it's had in years past. You know what I mean?
That's where all those Yamahas are going.
They are. Yep. No, and it is good, and a lot of people are still buying bikes. Yes, it is economically tough, but people are still buying bikes. I'm still in a job, so we are doing something right.
Oh, that's awesome. You mentioned Broadford, so we've just come off the last round of the Senior Victorian Motocross Championship. We saw the return to Broadford. You've been in the game for a very, very long time. I imagine you've raced Broadford before.
Believe it or not, Pete, this year was actually my 20th season.
Wow.
2006.
You are old.
Yeah, 20. I've actually been racing longer than I've been not racing.
Yep.
As at 35, I've actually 20 years of racing. I've actually raced longer than I haven't raced.
And you were a late starter. So.
Yeah. I started at 15. I did 1 or 2 junior races, got really hurt, and then started as senior at 16. So yeah, it's coming on. Oh, it is. It's 20 years for me this year. So yeah, I've done a lap or two around Broadford, and man, it was great. That track, natural elevation, high speed, the off cambers, the ruts, the technicality, I loved it. Apart from getting annihilated with the roost, I loved it, man. That was a true motocross track,
One thing I loved, and I think there's a difference, was that it formed up rough naturally. Mm-hmm. It wasn't prepped to get rough. Mm-mm. Through the day, after you guys went out for practice or even the first moto, I was like, okay, this is going to shape up to be a super highway. There's a few lines in the corners. The track just naturally, with that natural terrain, the elevation, the big uphills, the big downhills, it got rougher and rougher. And by the end of the day, and that applies to Saturday and Sunday, it was no different to a pro national track.
Yeah, agreed. It actually almost got better and better. The ruts and the technicality. And the good thing about that is, yes, it's high speed, but when it got rough, it actually slowed it down a little bit, which was good. If it had been a speedway all day, it would have been, I wouldn't say dangerous, but it would have been a lot harder. When it got those big long ruts and the big braking bumps and things like that, I personally enjoyed riding that sort of stuff because you've got to think outside the box. And ride some creative lines. There were some parts, I think, late in the second moto when I was obviously gassed out, but coming down the hill, I was literally going from one side to the other to ride around the bumps, because I knew every time I hit a bump, I was burning energy. It was harder for me to hang on, and you're forced to get creative, and I enjoy that personally. I thought that was great, riding different ruts, different, thinking again and actually challenging your brain to find not only the fast way around the track, but the sustainable way, the smooth way. Yep. I had a tendency in years past to just hit the same bump lap after lap. As a younger rider, my old man would just lose his mind. You hit the same bumps lap after lap, think, use your brain. And as a vet rider now, I think it's nice to be able to just tame it down a little bit. I don't ride half as fast as I used to, but the complexity of it that a track like that brings out, I enjoy that. I've really felt like I rode well too, because of that. So, yeah, that was really good. And hats off to Morgan Fogarty, man.
He did a great job prepping that.
He really did. He was there for a matter of weeks beforehand in the lead up, and he had some help from, I think, the Diamond Valley guys, Luke McDonald, Sam, and all those guys. And I personally thanked him after. I said, mate, that was the best prep track I've raced in years, and I really wanted him to know that he'd done a great job. So, yeah, hats off to Morgan, man. He really did, and I think he did a lot of that on his own.
Yep. And apart from the Roost, I think that was the consensus. Like, everybody loved the track.
Yep.
Everyone thought it raced well.
Yep.
Everyone thought it was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, unreal. I guess it makes me wonder why, we've had this asset sitting here for years. Like, I don't think it's been raced since 22, and even then it was few and far between for a couple of years before that.
Yeah, I think before that it was 2015 or something. So, yeah, as a state motorcycling complex, it's strange that it lay dormant for as long as it did. Yeah, I think funding had a lot to do with it.
Yep.
I think that's the thing. The track isn't managed by a club. That's the hard part, where all the clubs are managed by the clubs individually, and they're not. I think maybe back in the day Seymour might have managed Broadford, and that obviously didn't happen. So, yeah, they did well to pull it together. It was great, man. I really loved Broadford.
Would you like to see that as a national track?
Yep. Yeah, and it has been in the past. They had an MXGP there when I was a kid. I remember. Yeah, and
Stephen Everts, I think, came out and raced there.
They did. Yep. Yeah, all of them. Joel Smets, I remember Cal Pichon, all those MXGP guys.
Unreal.
Back in the day, that was a golden era. But yeah, I would love to see Broadford host a national. If they did a vet round, man, I'd be there. I wouldn't dare look like a goose and even bother trying to race MX1. But if they did a vet round there, I'd race it. Yep. For sure.
A couple of bigger jumps, and I think that would be, one of the tracks of the entire year, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
All right, well, speaking of that, across the Victorian Motocross Championship this year, you did all the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Which was your favourite track?
Broadford?
Yeah,
Broadford. Yep. Yeah, Edenhope, we had the potential, but we got the weather.
Yep.
I think the layout at Edenhope was awesome. Saturday was obviously a lot better than the Sunday. I enjoyed Edenhope, but obviously I'm not a good mud rider and all of that sort of stuff, so I struggled with that. But truthfully, Broadford was my favourite by a mile. I actually didn't end up racing Rosebud. I came down with a virus, I think, on the Friday. It was really, really...
I thought you were there.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was. I did 2 laps of qualifying.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, I pretty much threw up in my helmet and had the shakes, and actually left there and went to work for a couple of hours because I was so far
I feel
behind.
the same way when I see the sand there.
And then I actually spent Saturday night in a hot bath and went to bed really early and didn't move Sunday. I was rocked. So I was kind of bummed I didn't race that because I don't mind Rosebud. Yeah, Broadford. Broadford was my favourite. Yeah, yep. I enjoyed Ballarat too. Ballarat was good.
I was going to say Ballarat was a favourite of yours last time the senior Vics were there.
And again, it's those big natural elevation tracks. The likes of, well, there's not many like we discussed earlier. It's pretty much Ballarat, Blue Rock, and Broadford are the only 3 that I can think of with big natural terrain, uphills, downhills, elevation, cambers. So yeah, I really enjoy that style of track.
Yes, they're my favourite to get out with the camera too. Especially when they get rough. Your Ballarats, your Traralgans, your Broadfords, any of those tracks, QMP, Conondale, any of those tracks with elevation, I think make visually, whether it's you're watching it on TV or you're standing out there with a camera, I think they provide such a cinematic perspective of the racing as well, and I think they actually do justice to how technical and challenging the tracks get.
Yeah, agreed. And it's I think you hit the nail on the head. When you were filming and watching on the weekend, you thought, I feel like I could go a lot faster. And then, you see guys that, are the similar sort of speed and they're not going that fast. You go, man, it must be really hard,
Or guys that rip, that look like they're struggling.
Yeah.
There's a few of them as well.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. I was one of them. Yeah. Yeah.
So 3 years ago, we did our first VIX preview show. I had you in the Moto Asylum here, and we chatted about that and the series. as a whole, that the prestige that it used to have and that the committee now we're trying to regain. Looking back at the last 3 years, how do you feel about the Vic series and how it's evolved since those first preview shows?
I think it's in a good place. I think so. I think it's definitely built back that level of prestige. Interestingly, I had my Uncle Trev come to the races with me, I think last year, and he'd been obviously removed from the scene for a while, and I asked him that exact question. I said, mate, looking in, you haven't been to a Vic title for, 7 or 8, 9 years, what do you think of the health of the sport? He goes, mate, it's awesome. It's strong. And I definitely think the Vic Championship has regained status as such, as a not only a state championship, but probably even across the country. Queensland have the Sunny States. I don't know if WA have a state championship at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely. I think it's reclaimed its title as a very prestigious race series for sure. Yep, and it's not just obviously the tracks and the clubs. It's obviously the level of riders. It's the podcast. It's like this. It's the awards dinner. It's the presentation of the trophies at the riders briefing at the other rounds. It's all the content that all the riders are getting. That plays a massive role. That in itself is a big deal in this day and age. Every rider's getting photo packs and videos and all that sort of stuff, and we're seeing a lot more of it. I think, that's like you wind back the clock 10 years, you could run a great state title and the only people that knew about it were the people that were there. And nowadays, they run a great event and things like that, and it's all over the internet. People are talking about it on podcasts. And that gives... say sponsors and things like that, better coverage, better leverage across networks and markets and things like that. So in terms of growth for not only the sport, but the industry, it's a good thing. It would have been a bittersweet thing to run a really good event, say 10, 15 years ago. And apart from the people there, no one know about it. You know what I mean? So, and that's maybe why the sport did slow down for a period there, and it's just it wasn't getting the return on investment that it probably was warranted.
Yeah. I mean, something that we've discussed certainly as of late, like you look at the numbers at the regional level and they're really healthy at the moment across a lot of the regional championships. At the Pro MX level, they're really, really good. At the Junior Vics, they're phenomenal. I think, we've got the AJMX coming up at GV, so the last round of the Junior Victorian Championship at GV, which is this weekend coming. I think they've got 400 riders plus.
Wow.
Which is
great.
Yeah, there's riders from all over the country, but even then, that series has had over 300 riders per round this year, which has been phenomenal. We haven't seen those numbers translate into the Senior Victorian Championship, especially this year, and there's a little bit of back and forth, a bit of talk about why that might be, because the riders are obviously there, and the championship, as you said, is fantastic. The tracks we've gone to have been fantastic. It's run as well as any other championship, if not better, at that sort of level of racing. In your opinion, like what could we do to grow the number of senior riders racing the Vics? Do you think they're sort of almost scared off a little bit because of the perceived caliber of the event, or what do you think it is?
I don't think so. I think the guys that are fully committed to doing the full, 8 rounds of the Nationals, I think are so invested in that perhaps maybe going to race a Vic title is, I wouldn't say of a high priority, but it's probably just another cost that is probably not on their budget, It is hard to get to all the rounds of the Nationals and things like that. And if they're fully invested in that series, to go and race a state title and break your wrist or whatever, or to put more hours onto your race bike, whatever those things are, the MX1 field at the Nationals was stacked all year from what I saw. And yeah, you're right. It didn't necessarily translate to a full field at the state titles. There are a handful of guys that were doing the Pro MX that were at the Vics, your Jacob Sweets, Nick Medson.
A lot of the MX2 guys.
A lot of the MX2 guys. But that's honestly, that is a tough question. Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is to that. I'd like to unpack that more. Maybe I can get back to you on that one.
We hope you're enjoying the show. Here at Mental for Moto, we can only do what we do because of the sponsors who support us. So please stay tuned for a couple of brief ads and make sure you show these legends some love.
Are you getting arm pump, fatiguing after just a few laps, or feel like you're often fighting against your bike? Today's motorcycles have been designed and built to suit a broad range of riders, conditions, and riding styles. This one-size-fits-all approach, however, means that when it comes to your own riding, your bike is often not handling and performing at its very best. Whether you're a weekend warrior or an elite-level racer, Fastline Suspension will help you unlock your riding potential by ensuring your bike is set up perfectly for your specific needs. And with the right setup, you're guaranteed to go faster, fatigue less, and ultimately have more fun riding your motorcycle. So what are you waiting for? Contact Adam at Fastline Suspension now. Fastline Suspension, set up for maximum performance, precision tuned for you.
There's nothing more refreshing after a day at the track when you're sweaty, grimy and exhausted than taking a dip in the pool. Southeast Pools specialise in building high-quality fiberglass and concrete swimming pools across the Peninsula and Gippsland region and offer a range of designs to suit every lifestyle, yard size and budget. So pick up that phone, give Trav at Southeast Pools a call today and be ready to take the plunge this summer.
Hero helmets have won over 125 motorcycling world titles with world-renowned superstars including Antonio Cairoli, Jeffrey Hurlings, Martin Muscan, even Jason Anderson. From the world stage right down to the grassroots motocross scene, Arrow is the title sponsor of the Gippsland Motocross Championships and even supports up-and-coming local legends such as Memphis Stravina and Zan McIntosh. As one of the lightest and safest helmets on the market, when it comes to protecting my most important asset, I choose Arrow as well. To check out the range of Arrow helmets, head into your local dealer today or click the link below to visit the website.
At Mental for Moto, our mission is to give the unsung heroes of Aussie motocross a voice. From grassroots racing right through to the biggest events in the country, sharing the stories you won't hear anywhere else. From the privateer chasing the dream, to the junior rider who's pushing for their first win, the mechanic who works late into the night to get the bike ready for race day, to the track builder who turns a pile of dirt into a work of art. This is the beating heart of our sport. We're able to bring these stories every week to thousands of Aussie Moto fans thanks to the generous sponsors who share our vision. If you're interested in the advertising packages that we have available, or just want to show your support, please check out our website, www.mentalformoto.com, and we can tailor a package to suit your needs. Now, let's get on with the show.
All right, I'll cut to the chase then, because I think track location has been a big talking point. Mm-hmm. And I know, talking to a lot of riders, that, and I don't think it's necessarily justified, but I understand it as well when you're trying to fund a effectively privateer racing program. Do you think it would be better if the rounds that we raced at the Senior Vics were closer to metropolitan Melbourne?
Main demographic of riders is?
I think there's probably more. The more central you are, I think the more riders you're going to attract.
So I know from what I've seen online and things like that, they try and ultimately give each region a round.
100%.
You know what I mean? If you had 3 rounds of the Vic titles at the Gippsland region, it'd be war. Northern region would kick up a stink. Western region would kick up, so they try to give each region at least a round. They also have to have the clubs put their hands up to do that. They can't just pick a club. The clubs have to nominate themselves to do that, and then they have to invest in all that stuff. So, perhaps maybe not enough clubs are getting the support that they need to, and I know for a fact that that's the truth. A lot of clubs run on fumes, man. They got 2 or 3 core people
doing all the work.
Yeah, and none of them are getting paid. So that's that's the dichotomy of that situation. I think is that the clubs themselves don't have the support. It was really good to see. We raced Mafra Gippy a month or 2 back, and that club has reinvested in themselves big time.
Brent's done an amazing job out there, Brent Sylvester.
100%. And the club, the track, the facilities, everything like that, that was really rejuvenating to see that. Because that's another one of those iconic Victorian tracks, I believe, Mafra. And, yeah, we raced the Gippy there a couple of months ago, and the track was the best it's ever been, in my opinion, for a regional. The facilities are great, the toilets are upgraded, the canteen, everything like that. But I haven't seen many other clubs really prosper. And it all comes back to a club level. You need guys on the ground. They're not only passionate, but they're getting the support, And the more, truthfully, man, I wouldn't even mind seeing Mafra put their hand up for a national.
I'd love to see that, yeah.
They did it in 2018, I remember. And I don't know how stoked everyone was on it, but something like that would be great. And I'd like to think maybe that Brent would put his hand up for that, and get everyone there. But yeah, it's hard at a club level. They just really don't get the support to constitute holding an event like that. And if it goes belly up and they don't get a return on investment, man, they're in the hurt locker.
Yep.
So if it costs them money to host a round, then it's you can understand why they'd never do it again.
Yeah. I was just sort of thinking more about the, within 3 to 4 hours of the Melbourne side. So, Colac gets good numbers, Ballarat gets good numbers, but then we start to get out to tracks, and I'm just using these as examples, not for any other reason, but your Eden Hopes, your Warrnambool, your Portlands, you start to get to 5, 6, 7 hours. And I think we saw, that the proof was in the pudding. The numbers at those tracks were definitely lower.
Yeah, for sure. Eden Hope was a stretch, man. I think it was about 6.5 hours for me to get over there.
Yeah. I'll add another hour on that for me.
Yeah.
Like Kenny, that's half an hour from his house. So
yeah, it's 45 minutes from the Doon pub. Hey,
yeah.
But see, that's another club that had invested a lot of money into their
100%.
track and facility, and needed to capitalise on their investment.
And it's nice to be able to showcase these tracks that are everywhere in Victoria, but if you're not getting the numbers, like my concern is, and it's something that I've heard spoken about, is the viability of the Victorian Championship at the senior level.
Okay.
If they're not getting these numbers, I think they need sort of 120 or 130 riders
to break even.
Yeah, to break even.
To break even.
And we're just sort of getting a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of buffer.
Yeah, man, it's hard, isn't it? And there are obviously a lot of things that come into play, cost of living and, economical struggles and things like that. But
it's not affecting the juniors. The juniors will travel. We're getting regularly riders from Tassie, South Australia, New South Wales coming to race the Junior Vics. Lots of them.
Yeah.
So it's something that is only sort of affecting the senior championship, and yet there is a lot of senior riders out there not racing. So we just need to get them to come race.
What would if you could put together a strategy, and I understand you're doing this on the fly, but if you could put together a strategy that could help improve that, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Well,
I've been thinking about it a lot, and short of trying to make it easier, which I don't think is necessarily, the ultimate solution, I haven't been able to come up with sort of a strategy for it because, like I said, the events are really, really well run. The tracks that we've been racing, regardless of if they're 2 hours away or 7 hours away, have been awesome. And the championship as a whole is it's really good. So I haven't been able to come up with that, that strategy in my mind, to solve the problem.
Do you think prize money would help?
I don't think so. I mean, at that level, I think most of the riders, regardless if there's prize money on the line or not, are doing it for love.
Yep.
And prize money is only obviously going to affect a few riders anyway.
And I see per class, yeah.
I see the shortage. There's definitely the elite level riders that race the Pro-MX. We could get a few more of them, but there's also a lot of those regional guys that I think could and would do well at the Victorian Championship that are sort of, I think, staying away.
Yeah, and maybe it is a mindset thing where they go, oh no, I'm not good enough to race a state title, or we're only beginning, or we're only learning, or whatever. And that's, again, that might be the consequence of prestige. You know what I mean? As it might deter people of a lower experience level away from doing a series like that. They think, oh, I don't belong in that series. I've only just done my first year of Gippies, or you know what I mean? And it's not to say that they aren't capable. I'm sure they are, So yeah, it's definitely an open-ended question, and I think there's probably a lot of avenues to explore to really get to the bottom of that.
And for the listeners, if you've got any ideas,
please,
message, leave a voice message, send a DM, send an email. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, agreed. Yep. No, I'd love to see and then ultimately hear what other people are thinking. I obviously speak for myself, but I'd like to think I have somewhat of an idea of what people think. And if we're completely wrong or if we've got no idea, hit us up in the comments.
Probably both of those, but hit us up in the comments anyway.
let us know, please.
So what's next on the cards for Dean Mosig?
A little boy.
Yeah.
No, I think, now that the racing is sort of nipped up, there might be a club day here and there or riding. But, yeah, honestly, just trying to get ready for that now. I'll still try and ride where I can. And, there's a couple of club days. I think Broadford are actually hosting a club day next weekend through Diamond Valley. I'd like to maybe go back and do that. But no, focus is going to shift now. Big change with my job that I'm going to have to pour a lot of attention and energy and focus into. Restructuring my house at home. Yeah, just getting ready for that. See, I'll probably get another bike in the next few weeks, hopefully, and start building that up. And yeah, that'll be it, I think, Pete. I think there might be another Yamaha event towards the end of the year that I'll end up going to. Watch maybe the Supercross. I'd like to get to the Geelong round and take the family to that. So, yeah, no major events or anything really on my calendar now. Yeah, a lot of it's going to be work and family focused for, the last quarter.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, I think. So, yeah.
You've been watching the AMA Motocross Championship?
Oh, religiously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Jed Beaton.
Every Sunday morning, man. It's my couple of hour window of watching that. Yeah.
Well, we just saw Jed Beaton go over and he's racing in the last three, so he went for the first of his rounds at Unadilla. Did surprisingly, I think his ability and potential is there, but he did surprisingly well for his first race in the US, I thought anyway.
Yeah, yes and no. I've always been a big believer in Jed. He had podiums in the MXGP on the Nestan Husqvarna team at his time over there, and has raced MXGPs and things like that. I believe, or have believed, that Jed is a world class rider ever since he come back.
He's going from our winter to their summer on a privateer bike. Privateer-ish bike.
Yeah, CDR bike is from all accounts world class.
Is that what he's on, though?
Yeah, it's a CDR bike.
Okay, yeah.
It's a CDR bike, yep.
I watched an interview with him at the end of Unadilla and sort of made out that it was sort of straight off the shelf, last minute, organised thing. Obviously, he's going to have his suspension.
Yeah, he's got all the suspension, to my knowledge anyway. I don't fully know, but yeah, I know they sent all his suspension and all that from here over a week or two before he flew over, I think it's probably 4/5 of what his factory bike is here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But no, honestly, and you know what? Hats off to the Aussie boys. It just goes to show how fast the level of racing is here in Australia.
I thought exactly the same thing.
And it was, I was a proud Aussie.
Yep.
Yeah. To go, man, like the boys over here are really, like, as much as Jed was really dominant this year, if Kyle was healthy, Kyle would have been right there. Nathan Crawford at the end of the season comes strong on his factory. Tanty, the top sort of five guys in the Aussie ranks are of world-class speed, I believe. I think if you threw them all in the mix, I think a lot of them still would have qualified in that top 10.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's really impressive just to see how good the talent and speed and level of racing here is in Australia.
I guess the bit that I came away with, the thought that I came away with after watching Jed at Unadilla, to me, it looked like he struggled with the bike a little bit. He looked like he was manhandling it, like there was a lot of feedback. And I probably put that down to settings, more than anything, the American tracks being a little bit different.
Yeah.
And especially after we saw him at the Pro MX this year, like, he looked like him and the bike were one.
Yeah,
just
agreed.
everything gelled. Nothing was hard. There was no feedback. It was so smooth. And that made me think, like, all right, if you can get him dialed and comfortable like that over there, could we see him on the podium?
Yep. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and I think the thing perhaps maybe just with Unadilla in specific, it's probably one of the faster tracks on the American circuit.
That was so rough. Oh.
And it was super, super rough. So I don't think a lot of our Australian tracks are not that fast. Really, they are, obviously, especially the pace they ride them. But I think Unadilla is a
Broadford.
Yeah, maybe Broadford. But yeah, it'd be hard to just go over there and get a setting that works on a track like that, without a doubt. Yeah, but I don't know if you saw on Instagram, Chad Reed was calling out Haiden Deegan's setup. He said that Haiden Deegan's bike didn't look good.
Yeah.
They're on the ground day in, day out testing. So, you know what I mean? I don't think it'd be easy to get
even Hunter's bike, I said it at the start of the second moto It looked like he was just getting a lot of feedback through the bike.
I think, and I don't know this to be totally true, but I don't think Unadilla is a favourite for a lot of the riders in America. I know James Stewart used to talk about how much he hated racing Unadilla.
Yep.
I know a lot of riders have been vocal about them not liking that track.
Well, it's technical. It's off camber. Like there's a lot of off camber corners.
And just very fast.
Yep.
Very fast. I think, if you hit a big square edge bump at speed or whatever, it doesn't matter how good your bike is, man. It's gonna have a cause and effect. Yeah. But yeah, hats off to the Aussie boys, man. It'd be interesting to see how he goes at the next two. A little bit more time over there. I think he's stayed with Hunter and rode with him.
Yep.
So yeah, it's great to see, man. I'll be cheering from the couch.
And Connolly and Larwood.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on those boys?
Kiwi boys. I was pumped to see Brodie Connolly's last corner pass on Levi Kitchen. I think it was the second moto.
Yeah.
Just had some bulldog in him. Yeah, and I think he caught Levi sleeping.
He looked like he packed it in. He sort of, after Levi passed him, he stood up on the pegs, looked like he backed off, and then, 2 corners to go. He came from like 10 bike lengths back and just railed the inside.
Yeah, that was a get on.
Definitely caught him sleeping.
He caught him sleeping, you know what I mean? And he was pumped on it too, Yeah. The Aussie boys are good, man. Obviously Kiwi for Brodie, but yeah,
that will claim him.
Yeah. I think we've tried to claim him a few times. Yeah, yeah. No, that's it, man. So it's great, man. It's great. It adds depth to the field and gives these guys the exposure that they deserve.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. The boys at any level of like racing, they deserve every bit of exposure they get. And some, I believe, because what goes on behind the scenes for them to be at that level, the training, the riding, for all of those guys, I've only seen dribs and drabs of it back when I remember Cade racing at that level, and just the effort and work that he had to put in and the commitment and all that kind of stuff. These guys lay their bodies and their lives on the line more than I think meets the eye, really. And
they're barely ever not carrying injuries.
Oh, man. And everything else that comes on top of it, financial strain, fear, all of it, it's...
Well, I mean, we spoke about that earlier, like going back to Broadford, watching the C grade guys and the B grade guys bombing down those hills tentatively because they were so rough and the consequences of obviously crashing up pretty high, and then watching the A grade guys just like, what do you do? Is it compartmentalized? Do they just shut that part of their brain off because they were just, wide open going down these hills with the bike dancing around? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, it's a fine line between confidence in your ability, the racer brain just kicks in, and I think those people have the ability to not shut it out, but just back themselves. Back themselves and know that they can hit those ruts full speed and be in control, or even having say when the bike does step out of place, they know that they can straighten it up, or they can grab it. I think that's the difference you see with a lot of the difference between the top pro guys and say even the tail end guys at say a national. You see the likes of a Jed Beaton, Kyle Webster. You'll see the bike step out, and you'll see how cool, calm, and collected they are.
They wouldn't even remember it.
No, you know what I mean? Where I have a moment like that, and I pull off, dude. I'm done.
100%. Yeah, totally.
I've
had this conversation with other people. Yep.
Or not be able to just recalibrate themselves and find the flow and all that kind of stuff. So I think that plays a role. It's experience.
Yep.
It is experience. If they. And it's bike time. Those boys ride 2-3 times a week.
They're having those moments all the time, so those moments become nothing.
And sometimes, with that being said, to be pushing your own personal boundaries and personal limits, you need to be doing that all the time to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's one of the things that I've sort of said along the years is, the balance of a good rider is how comfortable he can be being uncomfortable and how long he can do that for, and I know personally myself, man, I am not comfortable being uncomfortable anymore. I got too much on the line, man. I got too many injuries, the list goes on. So when I get uncomfortable, I'm happy to throw the anchor out. You know what I mean? because of those other factors. But, you know, the guys that are getting uncomfortable during the week, they're riding heaps, they're comfortable like that, then, you know, it's nothing. Where, you know, the likes of, say, the B or some of the C guys, where they're not used to that. And a big moment like that down a hill or whatever, and they, you know, you shit yourself.
You tense up
and you stop breathing and you lose your flow and your momentum. And yeah, that's probably all it is, man. Just an experiencing. Yeah.
I mean, watching the pro guys through the lens for the last 4 years, you know, pretty closely, I've been asked by a few of the privateer guys, like, what's the difference between, you know, them and your Cole Websters and your Jed Beatons and your Nathan Crawfords. And for me, I don't think it's necessarily, like, in a big way, it's fitness or even skill level. They can all rip a dirt bike. But I feel like your Jed and your Cole and your Crawford and your Tanties, they're just more willing to push that extra 2%, 3%, 4% for the entire moto.
Yeah. And they've got the bodies that can do that too. You know what I mean? To be at that level of fitness is a full-time job.
Yep.
And there's not that many people.
And the mental focus to do that for an entire moto, I think, is something else as well. Like, it's easy to go, all right, I need to push for a lap. But just to be in that zone for 25, 30 minutes.
30, 35, yeah. Yeah, and that's it. And it all comes down to experience. You know, there's not that many people, you know, you take the top 10 people out of the equation for, say, the Pro MX here, probably even the top 5 or 6, really. Everyone else is working. You know, like apart from the factory guys that are doing that for a living, you know, most of the other guys are working jobs, man, you know, and the level of commitment that it takes to have a body in that shape to be able to do that, you know, not many people have the opportunity to really, really do that. You know, it's hard.
All right, bit of bench racing. What did we see Jed finish at the next round?
5th to 7th.
5th to 7th?
Yep. And I think... So, and I only know what I see on TV, but he even said, so the second moto at Unadilla, I think he ran 4th for most of it. And then I think it was the last 2 or 3 laps, he said he just hit a wall. I think, that being said, they might figure some things out with the bike. You know, it's one of those things where once you know, okay, that's the length of the moto, I know I can do it. You know, they know how to manage their energy. And, you know, maybe he just emptied the clip trying to run that pace for as long as he did and then hit the wall. Because I think he went from 4th to like 9th. I think he went 10-9 for 7th overall. Yeah, man, I'd love to see him finish in the top 5. He's qualifying, you know, he was essentially the next guy behind the top 4, you know, and it was only 2 seconds, you know, like Hunter and Jet, I think were 2:12s. Deegan and Prado were 2:12, and then I think he was a 2:14. He was the next best guy. Yeah, I'd love to see him finish in the top 5, man. That'd be great.
Definitely. I mean, it's putting Australia on the map. At what point do the Americans start saying, no more Australians and no more New Zealanders? Like, we've got such a small population.
Yeah.
And then when you see like 3 or 4 Aussies in the top 10 in both classes and New Zealanders.
Yeah, look at Cole Davies.
Yep. That's, Cole Davies, obviously the Lawrence boys. I think Connolly has the potential to podium, if not win, MX2 races. It's taken him a little bit longer to sort of get going.
Yeah, I'm a big Jed Beaton fan.
Do you think, I mean, off the back of this effort, do we see Jed Beaton ever do a full season in the US?
Without knowing him personally, just to see the way he spoke about being excited about racing again in his interview, I think it was on Vital MX. He goes, you know, I'm so used to Australia and so used to, you know, the races at home. You know, it was exciting to be back on a plane and go on racing. And I think they were his words. I think, again, I don't know him personally enough to vouch, but I think that would be on his agenda to get back to an MXGP or an AMA level, you know.
Well, I think this is the best Jed we've ever seen. Like, I think he's a better racer and rider now than when he was racing in Europe.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, and he's been through some hardships here, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes through hardships is where we have our growth. You know, he was, you know, robbed of that championship, breaking his femur, I think 2 rounds to go. I think it was last year or the year before. And I think 2024, he finished tied on points for equal first, but second on countback.
Yep.
So he's had a shitty couple of years in that regard. So I guess like anything, man, the sometimes the heartaches are what teach us the biggest lessons. And maybe he's really honed in on his craftsmanship and all that kind of stuff. And he looks great. Yeah, agreed. He looks good.
There's talk that Kyle Webster's going to be doing a full season over in the US next year.
Really?
What do you think his ceiling is?
Oh, man. Again, I didn't know that prior to now. That's great news. Would it be quad lock Honda with your Reeve?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah, look.
I'd imagine. Like, I don't know that 100%, but
okay,
I
cool.
would imagine, yep.
Great, man. Awesome. I think Urive gives a lot of people a lot of good opportunities, and getting someone like him over there on a bike that is super competitive, that'd be great, man. I'd love to see Kyle do really well. He's, again, a very likable dude, friendly kind of guy and a great rider and ambassador for the sport and that. So, mate, if we could get him over there doing a full season, again, top 10 would be
amazing.
A no-brainer. Though I think he belongs there.
Yep.
Especially when he's fit and healthy. It was kind of hard to see him struggle a little bit this year. I think that shoulder injury he had really held him back.
He has copped, like his body, if they dig him up in 1,000 years, they're going to go,
oh, that's Kyle Webster.
What the hell has this guy been through? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So, mate, power to all of them, man. I'd love to see more guys get international opportunity. As good as the racing is here, I don't think there's that much career prosperity in Australia for making big money anyway, so that'd be great. I'd really love to see that.
Most definitely. Well, who do you think is going to be the next big thing to come out of Australia?
Good question. There's
I can think of one Yamaha rider that is.
Yeah, Blake Bohannon stands out to me in the 85 class. He's definitely, obviously he's a lot younger and he's got some years ahead of him, but yeah, he's definitely a standout for me. We actually got to ride with him at the launch, the 250F launch. That was really good, and yeah, he looked tiny on a 250F, and he was ripping.
He is tiny.
He was tiny. He'd be the first one that I think of for, say, international level. He won that world championship a couple of months ago. Who do you think?
He would have to be the top of the pick for me.
Yep.
If he can transition to the big bike, and he's got some growing to do. And my concern with him would only be that and I think he's got the right people in his corner to sort of curtail this, but that he gets pushed too far too quickly. I believe he's going to the US next year as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I think we won't see him back in Australia for a long time, provided that
things go well. Yeah.
Yep. The chips keep falling into place. But yeah, definitely Blake Bohannon, I think, is going to be the next big thing. And yeah, beyond that, like, he would have to be the standout. Maybe Seth Thomas. I think he's got a lot of potential as well.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. There's definitely the MX3 category is good. Like, I think even though he raced MX2 this year, I think Cade Kingsford has a lot of potential as
100%
well.
too.
Cade Kingsford, his first season in MX2, runner-up. I think, yeah, Cade Kingsford will be one to watch for.
I mean, there's no sort of illusions that he's not the most likable guy. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's a lovely kid.
Yeah.
But he's never happy.
Really?
Like, he's always grumpy because he demands so much from himself, and he's not happy unless he's winning every race, every moto,
by a minute,
fastest qualifier. Yeah. But his drive and attitude, I think, could see him go a very, very long way.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't get the better of him, I guess.
But he seems to thrive. He's not one of those guys that it gets to them and chips away at them. I think that's what drives him.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that in the likes of a Haiden Deegan as well. Love him or hate him, I think a lot of people have their opinions on him, but he seems to have that.
I agree.
That drive.
I'm not a fan, but I mean, amazing rider, and I think that's the same thing with him. Yeah.
The mentality.
He likes to be the underdog and to prove people wrong. Like, that's what drives him.
Yeah, I think I saw a video of him. I can't remember if it was Budds Creek or whatever it was, and he came off and he's like, I'm so effing sick of losing. You know what I mean? He finished third.
Yep. And
it's just like you could see the discontent in his face. So he was just so sick of getting third. So, where it's interesting. I don't personally know the Kingsfords at all. I don't even think I've met them, but it's interesting to hear that. Yeah.
Oh, away from the bike, he's like lovely.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You see him on race day, like even when he comes up to the podium, even at QMP. He just went 1-1, and I actually said to Jonesy when we were taking the podium photos, I said, can I ask him to smile? And he goes, I dare you.
Oh, wow.
But we did get a little, I guess it was the biggest smile we've seen from him all year.
Okay, cool.
You know, he just wants more.
Yeah.
He wants more and more and more. And I think that sort of attitude is what's going to help him find success. You know, that's what drives him. And he's not there to make friends. I think he's not, you know, he's not sort of apologetic for it either. It's just that's his personality, and I think it's actually going to see him succeed.
This is the hard part of, I guess, you go back to Haiden Deegan, right? And he's been vocal about saying things like, oh, everyone says the same podium speech and they're so uniform and they're so scared to step out of the construct of social norms of what it is to be a professional athlete and stuff like that. And, you know, they have the mindset or mentality that, you know, personality is what's going to bring growth to the sport. You know what I mean? And yeah, he's painted himself as a villain to some degree, but he gets eyes on him and people want to watch, you know. And do we need to see more personality come through the sport? You know, is it someone like, you know, that say like a Cade Kingsford who isn't scared to tell it how it is and all that, you know, does that put more eyes? Does that grab more attention? Does that bring growth to the sport? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yes, more eyes on the sport, more attention on the sport. I personally gravitate more towards
the professionalism.
Yeah, you know, those guys that have that camaraderie, even though they're rivals. But I also, without a doubt, can see the attraction that those types of riders have to a lot of the younger demographic. Like, you know, I mean, you look at how many fans Haiden Deegan has. I think the nice guy personality that when you get to see it, like you look at Tomac's growth now that we've seen some of his personality and he's been more outgoing and happier. I think his growth has been exponential. Someone like Lachlan Turner, like you see her at the Pro MX and she has got a bigger line of fans wanting autographs than Jed Beaton and Cole Webster.
100%. Yeah, she does. Yep.
And it's because you get that personality. It doesn't matter whether they're happy-go-lucky, grumpy. When you start to see the genuine person, I think that is what I would like to see more of.
Yeah, I think authenticity is invaluable. You know what I mean? And this is where it's hard to draw the line because, you know, I look at Haiden Deegan and sometimes some of the things he says, I think, are you setting a good role, like standard? Is that role model?
That's the bit I don't like because I agree. I don't think he sets a good example.
No. And again, Tegan and I will watch it sometimes and she'll say, I can't believe little kids look up to this guy. You know, and then, you know, the sportsmanship and camaraderie of the likes of Hunter and Jet, the total professionalism and things like that. You know, you go, that's the bar, that's the role model, that's the standard you'd like to set. It's hard, isn't it? You know, like, because, yeah, you know, Haiden is bringing eyes to the sport and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the generation and his audience, I believe, is predominantly younger. You know, the demographic of his audience. I don't think dudes our age.
Yeah. Definitely not.
There's definitely not. You know, I think dudes our age are going, wow, man, this guy's got a lot of attitude. You know, I've seen a lot of comments go, if he didn't talk that much shit, you'd be like, man, how good is this kid?
100%.
How good is this kid? You know, I can't believe he's coming in and he's the only guy that has come close to running with Hunter and Jet or Prado. You know what I mean? But because he's ran his mouth the way he does, it's like, oh, that's what you get, man. You're getting waxed by 30 seconds of moto. Sit down, you know, shut up. Yep. You know, you're not doing yourself any favours either, you know. I want to like the guy. You know, I actually want to like the guy. He's Fox guy,
I love watching him race.
I love watching him race. I, as a kid, you know, I grew up in that Metal Militia era, you know, when I was like 10, 11, 12, you know, Metal Militia was the thing. I grew up watching Krusty Demons, you know, Brian Deegan was the coolest guy ever, you know. I just don't know if, like, he was sort of like the anti-industry back then, right? That was what Metal Militia was. It was a big middle finger to industry. That's what they were. I don't know if the middle finger to the industry sticks now.
Yep.
You know, the 90s was a different time. You know what I mean? And I understand that Brian himself is a marketing genius too. And see, this is the hard thing, right? Because...
Okay, well, I hear that a lot, but you compare him to, say, Pastrana, and I think Pastrana, which had he was the antithesis he was the opposite of Brian Deegan, and he was the clean cut, good guy, but did the same sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I would say his growth and popularity and even financial success
surpassed.
Oh, by far
surpassed
Brian Deegan. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and the militia too. You know,
Yep.
You know, I don't think militia has the following it had in the early 2000s that it has now either. You know, but it's hard because what I have heard, and this is from people that are pretty established at Yamaha as well. From all accounts, at the practice track during the week, he's the hardest working. I seen Bobby Regan, he's the team manager at Star Racing. He said Haiden is the most polite during the week. His mannerisms and everything. You wonder how much of it is a show. You know what I mean? How much of that is his true personality and how much of it is the likes of Brian or his marketing teams? Oh, you know, not like clickbait or rage bait, but like they're doing stuff for views or for likes and things like that. You know, it's hard to draw the line, you know, and that's where, you know, where we talk about authenticity, how much of that is authenticity? How much of it is a show? Like,
I mean, I used to work for Sony Pictures back in the day. I met a lot of celebrities, a lot of movie stars, and one thing that definitely became apparent was they can all be super nice, but there's some of them are still flogs.
Oh.
And that's, I guess, I always felt like, and I've said this on the podcast before, that and in the early days, I thought that was the act. Haiden Deegan was a nice guy, and what you see, you know, with the shit talking and the attitude was the act. And now I kind of think it's the other way. I think that's him, and the nice guy is an act may not be the right word, but he puts that on when he needs to.
I think his attitude's definitely changed from the start of the season to now.
I agree.
You know,
and I mean, that's part of growing up. Like, he's still a young kid that has a long way to go.
I lost all respect for him at the start of the year when he pulled that stuff with the shirt, the RIP Jet. He spoke about Jet's
That's just because we're old.
Yeah, but that's...
No, I agree.
Respect and morals and all that stuff. You know, the Dylan Conrique, I think, is Jet's girlfriend, and he had written lyrics. I think she's a singer or something, or maybe, and... You know, like just the level of disrespect. I when it came to a role model, crossed the line for me big time, and that wasn't cool. And I would like to hope his future self, maybe in 5 or 6 years, when he's further down his career, looks back and goes, "Man, I was an idiot. What the fuck was I thinking?" You know what I mean?
Yep.
I would like to hope, because that for me, and when it comes to, you talk about setting an example and being a role model for a younger demographic, which is his audience, that wasn't it. That was pretty far removed from a good example, I believe. So, and, you know, that's, you know, again, I see a lot of people now that are saying, man, if you didn't talk all that at the start of the year, a lot of people would be clapping for you, you know, so it's a tough one.
I mean, he's an unbelievable talent.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching him ride a dirt bike because he's exciting to watch with his style.
Agreed.
Do you think, though, like when I watch the way he rides, I think there is a limit to how fast you can go when you ride like Haiden Deegan. And I feel like, you know, we saw, and I'll use Jed Beaton as the difference here. Jed Beaton, I think, found that extra gear with, you know, slow is smooth and smooth is fast this year. And that was the step. And I feel that Hunter's there, Jet's there, Prado's there. Can we see Deegan bridge that gap?
You know, the first thing I think of when I hear that statement, if you had to watch a race blindfolded, you'd be able to hear which one Haiden Deegan was.
Yep.
By the way he rides a bike. You know, you could hear Hunter and Jet. If you were blindfolded, you'd know that they're in that taller gear. Even Jed, you know, they ride that taller gear. It's roll speed, it's momentum. Like Haiden rides that bike like a 250F still. And I think, granted, he's got better. And to his credit, he said that at a lot of his interviews where he goes, I've been riding in a taller gear during the week. I've been trying to not rev the bike as much, you know. So I think that's pretty, that'd be big feedback. I think even the team would be saying that to him.
And I think we saw that in Moto 2 at Unadilla.
Yep.
He looked like he was riding a lot slower, and halfway through that Moto, he was 5 seconds back.
Correct.
The second half of the Moto, he dropped, you know, he dropped anchor, but he looked better and smoother and was a lot closer than he had been riding
So do you remember when Justin Barsha stepped into the 450 class?
Of course, yep.
And his first pro race was Unadilla. I think it was 2010. He had a fill-in ride, factory Honda, and he nearly won the moto. But the rounds after that, he crashed and cartwheeled. You know what I mean? That level of aggressive rev limiter riding has a very small window of working, unless you're superhuman fit and all that kind of stuff. And I think I do. It's like a guilty pleasure. I do actually watch Hayden's YouTube channel because I enjoy watching him ride and I enjoy seeing the riding they're doing during the week. And even for me, I can see how different his riding style has become throughout the year to try and cater to riding the 450 efficiently and smooth and sustainably. And that's where you looked at Prado on the weekend and his MXGP experience shone at that track because it's like an MXGP track, you know, the elevation and the style of the track, but he wasn't rev limiter in the bike. He wasn't bombing into turns, you know, and I think even at a Australian vet level rider, to ride a 450 fast is an acquired skill because you can't rev the tits off the thing. You know, you can't throw it into turns because the bike will always outmuscle a human unless you're Eli Tomac or
even if you are
Eli Tomac. You know what I mean? Those guys. Look at Jed at Unadilla. You know, he rode super smooth. Silky smooth, and you know the last two motos was gassed. You know what I mean? So you can't. I don't care how fast or fit you are. You cannot outmuscle a 450 for long. You know.
Well, I think that the epitome of that theory and that philosophy is Eli Tomac.
Mm-hmm.
At one stage in his career, you know, he was going to be the winningest non-champion the AMA had ever seen
until Hangtown. Thunder Valley 2015. He won Hangtown by over a minute that year. 2015, Geico Honda, I remember that. But
even on the Cowie, like he won so many races and the championship eluded him. And I think for him, like, yes, he's still a bulldog on a bike, but he's not the same rider that he was. I think for him, that smooth is fast mentality to a degree had to translate into him being successful on the 450.
Yep.
When to push, when to back it down.
Yep.
And we saw those highs and lows even after he started winning on the 450 and becoming more consistent because he was that guy that was going to either win the race or come 15th because
he pumped up or
pumped up or threw it away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And that's it. There is an art to riding a 450 efficiently, and it's like 20 years into racing, and my first season on a 450 was 2010, so 16 years for me on a 450. I'm not even close to figuring it out. Respectfully to myself, I'm not even close to figuring it out, man. I know I can ride smooth and have, relatively good fundamentals. Can I go really, really fast for 20 minutes? No. Just the bike beats me up. And I tame mine back. I make it rideable. No. You know what I mean? And obviously it's a fitness thing and all that too. But yeah, getting back to it, I think if Haiden could just figure that out, I think that's and the first half of the motos he's there, and then by the end he's gapped 30 seconds, and that's where maybe he's fully just emptying the clip the first half, trying to ride the pace without understanding the sustainability that needs to come from a particular style to be there at the end. Yeah.
Dare I say it, he needs to just take that little bit of jet and adopt it into his own riding. I mean, he's got, I think, and like I said, I'm not a fan, the same level of skill, the same level of track awareness. I think he's one of the very few riders that has that at the same level potentially that Jet has.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's how he rides, not his ability that's holding him back.
Yep. Agreed. Yep. Totally agreed. Yep.
All the talent is there.
Yep.
All the skill is there.
Mm-hmm.
He's got all the ingredients.
Maybe it's an age thing, having a level of patience that comes with being a certain age. You look at your Ken Roxons and all that, man, they're as seasoned as they come, but they've got that level of patience with a lot of things, like they know when to tone it back and they know when to, I think it was Hayden's first 450 race was World Supercross. And he butchered it, man. You could tell he was just trying to override the bike and crashing and looking behind him and
scrubbing everything,
and just like, yeah, it takes time to figure that out. So, yeah, like I said, I want to like the guy. I do, but, yeah, it's just the attitude thing really. And, not going to toot my own horn, man, but I like to think that being an approachable and being a likable person, not only in the industry but in life, will outlive whatever you do on a motorcycle, and I'd like to think that I think perhaps a lot of the reason as to why I am, say, in my career or where I am in the industry, a lot of that probably comes back to my personality. I think, without tooting my own horn. And I think, even when my riding days are done, I'd like to hope that people remember me for just being a good dude or a nice guy. You know what I mean? But without that, you know what I mean? Like, arseholes don't seem to have a good lifespan in the sport.
That's the saddest thing I see when I see Chad Reed at the races.
Yeah.
He's got a reputation away from the bike.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he does. Yeah. Sad.
One of the, if not, arguably the best Australian rider ever. You throw Jet, that's
pre-Jet.
Pre-Jet. Yep, pre-Jet. And I think that chip and that inability to get on with people has definitely tarnished his post-racing career and lifestyle. And I don't know whether he sees it or gives a shit, but yeah, he's definitely not the most loved guy in the paddock because of the way he is with people.
Just arrogant. Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah,
it's a real shame, because he's such a successful guy.
Yeah, they say you should never meet your heroes and all that. And I'm fortunate I've met a few. But yeah, I think it was Monza, 50 years of Monza party a couple of years ago. And Chad was there. And I was on the fence whether or not to like say hello and introduce myself. And I did. And I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't.
Yep.
Yeah, because I got the experience.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't like to speak ill of others. But yeah, everything that I've heard from industry elite people, it's all the same. So it's a shame, isn't it? Is it ego? What is it?
I mean, for him, I think the thing that makes him difficult to like now and to socialise with, I guess, as per your example, I think that's what made him successful. And unfortunately, in his case, he hasn't been able to turn that off post racing.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great analogy.
That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, he wouldn't have been the guy or the racer that he was. Unfortunately, that's what's cost him, I think. And he may not.
He's probably not even aware of it.
Yeah, but he may not value the things like those social connections and that side of things post-career. But as a fan and industry person looking in, it makes me sad.
Yeah, agreed,
yeah.
Man.
So
yeah, it's a tough one.
So be a nice guy, kids.
Just be a good person.
You could be a good racer.
You're not going to race forever, you know what I mean? And we're lucky to do what we do, but yeah, people, when your racing years are done, man, I'd like to think people remember you for who you were and how you made them feel. And that's not just racing, that's life, man. I think people remember you for how you made them feel. And if you're an arsehole, then they're probably not going to have good memories of you. So,
I mean, going back to, Lachlan Turner, she was signing autographs and I could hear her team in the background going like, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. Get your, bikes going up to the line, we got to go.
Yeah.
And she would stand there and do one last autograph, still be smiling. It's, it makes a big difference. And I think, her star is shining very bright because of the personality, more even than the results on track.
100%. And she's a very likable person. She was at the 250F launch. We got to ride with her and the dinner and all that. And I actually asked for a photo with her. Gracie is a fan of her. And I said, do you mind if I get a photo with you for my daughter? And she was like, of course, she's just super lovely.
Yeah.
And it's good. The industry still needs that.
Totally.
Yep. Good examples, man, because, I think we forget as we get older, but I remember just how impressionable I was as a kid, and I think we get a little bit far removed from that as we get older because the structure of our life changes and we're not as impressionable. But I do remember that, and I think kids nowadays are probably even more impressionable because of the exposure they have to the things. You know, we didn't have cell phones as kids. We didn't have social media when I was a kid or a teenager. Or maybe a teenager, yes, but not as a kid. So we weren't exposed to a lot of stuff. So the things that we did see, we were a lot more impressionable to. But what they're seeing now and the excess of content and information and things like that, you know, I think they are probably even more impressionable now. So it is important that those people are setting a good standard of not so much, again, obviously who to be on the track and as a rider, but just to be a good person, man. There's no shortage of shit people out there. So, you know, yeah.
Well, there's none in this studio. That's the main thing.
Oh, it's good. That's good. That's good.
No, all good. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you back in the studio, mate. I've just thought of something else that I'd like to talk with you about, but we'll save that for a future podcast.
Okay.
But before we wrap this up, mate, is there anyone that you'd like to thank and give a shout out to?
Yeah, there is, man. Always very grateful, but ultimately fortunate to have long-standing support and sponsors. And the people that have been with me are all 10 years plus now. You know, my relationship with Yamaha is over 10 years. My relationship with Fox is over 10 years. My relationship with Cruise Tune is over 10 years. The people that have been by me in terms of like racing are ultimately become, I guess, like lifetime sort of friendships, you know, and they sort of go past the naked eye, you know, like I love every year I go to all the Fox corporate previews and I network with all the people there and I love being a part of that. And I love being a part of Yamaha and going to their events and being, you know, so I think the term sponsors gets thrown around loosely, but the genuine connections that I've built and friendships and relationships within the industry from the companies of the people that help me out are probably even more valuable to me than the support in the likes of product and things like that. You know, I'd really value that, you know, and it's something that I think I'm probably most proud of. It's having those good relationships with the people within the industry, and I think that's what will go on for the years after I finish racing. It's the networks and the friendships and the relationships that I've cultivated through those people that have ultimately supported me, and I'm really proud of that, truthfully. Peter Stevens, obviously, I couldn't do what I do without the support of them, and that's goes without saying. I actually took on a new sponsor this year in Scott Goggles, which was exciting. So happy to be a brand ambassador for Scott Goggles, which was fun and exciting, and I look forward to working with them more. But yeah, truthfully, just grateful for the relationships that I've built over the years in the industry. And like I said, the people that are behind me have been there for over 10 years, man. And
that's what happens when you're a good bloke.
Listen up, kids. Yeah. And you know what I mean?
Truthfully, though, like, you know.
Yeah. I love connecting with them and obviously working with them and networking and supporting their events and just being invited to those, you know, that for me, that's what it's all about, especially now as a vet rider. You know, I'm not racing for results. You know, I'm doing it because I love doing it. And that's what keeps me engaged, man. It's the positive connections and relationships I have within the people that are in this industry and ultimately, you know, still support me, man. That's the feel-good stuff for me. So, yeah, they're the people.
Well, thank you so much for coming into the studio, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Good luck in December with Little Mo.
Little Mo. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Life's going to change for you again.
It is. Yeah. Yep.
And good luck with the next step at PS. I'm sure we'll hear more about that.
You will. Yep.
In time.
Yep. Thank you very much, Pete. And I appreciate everything you do. And shout out to you, man. I don't think everyone fully understands the effort that it takes for you to get content for all the riders week in, week out, and the travel and the time away from your family and the home, and you know, people wanting shit yesterday and you always keep you cool, and you know what I mean? I get it, man. I'm in the driver's seat with a lot of that stuff too, and it's hard sometimes, but no, you've built yourself a very respectable name and reputation in our industry, man, and I think all the riders have a lot to thank for you. So thank you.
Thanks, Dino, and well, I love it. So that's what keeps me coming back. Well, Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you like these shows, you know the drill. Please like and subscribe and share to your stories so we can keep growing the sport and the podcast. We are just a couple of episodes away, or I think 4 or 5 from our 100th episode. So if you have some ideas about who we should get on, topics we should cover, and what we should do to celebrate that one, please let me know. Shoot us a DM, a voice message, or send us an email. Massive thanks again, Dino, to coming on for this episode, and to our partners here at Mental for Moto, Fastline Suspension, Wolf Building Compliance, Southeast Pools, Iro Helmets, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the August sponsor of our Mental for Moto, Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, JT Plumbing. And most of all, as always, thanks to you guys for listening. On behalf of Mental for Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until next time, see ya.